Hey y'all, it's Heel Heat time.
Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles, and on this episode we're going to review Glow Season 2. Now, not Glow the original wrestling show, but Glow the Netflix dramedy based on the wrestling show. It dropped on Netflix 2 days ago. I binge watched it yesterday. So still fresh in my mind. I'm going to get this out here and talk about what I really liked. I thoroughly enjoyed Season 1, so coming into this, I had high expectations. And it delivered. And to me, Season 2, and if you're this far into it, I'm going to mention this right now. There's going to be spoilers. I'm going to talk about plot points. I'm going to talk about characters. I'm going to talk about things I liked and didn't like. So, if you don't want any spoilers, stop the video right here, go watch the season, then come back. But with that being said, I did enjoy the fact this year seemed less of it being the Allison Brie and Mark Maron show. Not that I don't like them, and I think they're awesome, and I think their characters are great, both Sam and Ruth. However, I like the fact that they got out and they spread it out more. We see more of the other characters that were just bit players in Season 1 take more prominent roles this year. We seen a character arc where Britt Baron's Justine, who in last season we had to reveal that it was she was Sam's daughter. We seen the arc of them two trying to build this new family where she's still dating the pizza guy boyfriend. She's wanting to rebel. He makes her enroll in high school, has her going to class, and goes all the way around to where her mother finds out that she's living there. And I'm going to jump around through this season just so I can talk about characters and their story arcs. And her mother comes down, and ultimately she goes back with the mother. The pleasing or satisfying result would have been the mother let her stay with Sam. But as we know, in reality, that's not always what happens. In children of split families where the father and the mother live in two different locations or two different homes, we don't always see the kid getting to go where they necessarily want to be. And do we know that Sam is a great father? It's another question. This is relatively new to him. We know he's still doing drugs, he's still drinking, he's still pretty much a mess like he was in the last season. So, is it better to go back with her mother, who famously in the Winter Formal episode talks about finding a stable man after all these years and having a stable home? So we got that whole story arc going, which is great. We get the whole Betty Gilpin's Liberty Bell character gets a more fleshed out storyline. She's more... It's starting to affect her more, the divorce with her husband. We see her trying to grasp and become a bigger star and take a producer role and try and muscle her way into being a power player in the series and being one of the decision makers. And it's a really good arc, especially when we see the fans somewhat turning on her in the Glow television series within the series. So the fans are kind of picking up on the problems and the demons she has. She breaks Ruth's leg on purpose, or seemingly on purpose. During that, she's high and drunk, get into Sam's cocaine. She had been drinking. So there's that whole arc of her character kind of falling apart. And again, it's grounded in reality. We've seen this in real life. We've seen where people get divorced and they fall apart. Now, is she going to pick up the pieces? Is there going to be a redemption if there's a season 3? Hopefully so, because I enjoy the character arc that they've gone with her. And I really like the reality that they're bringing into the show. That, yes, it's got comedic parts, and yes, it's a show, but they're grounding it steadily in reality. Another one of the characters who I love the way they played her arc this year is Kia Stevens, who a lot of you wrestling fans know as Awesome Kong, as the welfare queen. We played into it a bit last year where she mentioned playing the stereotypical role, playing a minstrel role. She goes and visits her son, who's in Stanford, and is almost ashamed to tell him what she does. They go to a match. She's noticeably ashamed in the match. Ultimately, the son accepts what she's doing, questions how she got to be so strong. A nice little arc to see the internal struggles of a black actress in the 80s having to play a stereotypical role, which, if you go back in history, it's what it was. It was a typecasting thing. Famously, Public Enemy did a song called Burn Hollywood Burn about it, which is a great song. Go check it out if you like rap or old school rap specifically. And if you do, you probably already know Public Enemy, so check it out. You'll like it, I guarantee. They had Ice Cube and Big Daddy Kane on. Anyway, too far off the subject. Robert Townsend talked about it in his movies and his comedy acts about the stereotypes and trying to break the mold. In 2018, we've come full circle where it is possible for someone like Kia Stevens to have a more fleshed out role and not be a stereotypical character. So it's great to see how this little slice in time, and she even mentioned it on the show, and they touch on it with other characters as well, everybody was a stereotype. And go back and watch wrestling at the time. We had guys like Kamala from Uganda. We had the Russians, the Koloffs, and all the other evil foreigners and all that stuff that we had. So it's kind of a good looking back at ourselves and seeing how far we've come and seeing how far we still have to go, because there still is a little bit of that mentality. But I digress. And the character arc with her was great, that she played a bigger role this season. Brittany Young, who plays Machu Picchu, I absolutely adore in her role. Anytime she's on screen, I smile. She just has this energy that comes off and comes through the screen as someone so positive, and it makes sense because it seems that her character is based off of Mountain Fuji, who was a very positive, a very uplifting, very smiling, happy person. And when I watched the original Glow back when I was a child, Mountain Fuji was my favorite character. I loved her. I loved what she did. She was happy, she was smiling, singing, dancing. And Brittany Young has taken that and put this in here. And we see a little bit, if you watch the Glow documentary, where in real life, Mountain Fuji was in love with the producer, Sam, I forget what his name is. Anyway, I know you'll say, someone will put it down here in the comments. But we see here where there's kind of a will they, won't they with Bash Howard's character, Chris Lowell's character, Bash Howard, who's the producer on this show. So they're taking a bit from the real life Glow and bringing it in. And we're going to get to Bash in a little bit, because he had some story arcs that I really enjoyed as well. The whole Allison Brie as Ruth and her kind of love triangle with Russell, the cameraman, played by Victor Quinez, and Mark Maron Sam, where we get the awkward almost kiss between the two. But just before that, she had talked to Justine's mother and was talking about the solid man and having one. So the almost kiss between Sam and Ruth drives Ruth into Russell's arms. We see Sam kind of a little bit jealous of Russell. Is how I took it watching it. Kind of a little bit maybe protective of Ruth. Maybe Sam doesn't have a way to expose his feelings for Ruth. But we could see where the Ruth and Russell partnership or couple kind of is bothering Sam, which, again, got an overlying story arc. We got stories coming forward. He's seeing Ruth as more of an equal during the season, so there's another great arc going along. And just fantastic how they weave in and out of these stories and bring them all the way through. Another one is the Kate Nash's Britannica, who we see, and I love the way they set things up. They made a plan to get more popular by having basically meet and greets with the fans after the shows. Well, we see some stalkers for Sheila the She-Wolf and Britannica, who has a stalker named Cupcake. Now, I'm gonna sidebar a second here, like I did a minute ago. If you watched it and you noticed Cupcake and you scratched your head and said, "I know him. He looks so familiar." He's an actor named Patrick Renna. Now, if Patrick Renna's name doesn't strike your memory, this one definitely will. And I know it will for everybody in my generation, and hopefully younger generations as well have seen it. But he's Ham from Sandlot. We have a grown-up Ham in the show, and he almost plays a similar character. How awesome is that to get one of the great children movies, Sandlot, Ham, one of the great characters in the movies in the 90s, into this show and into the series. And his character was even a good arc, playing the obsessed fan who baked cupcakes for Britannica, who wanted to marry her. Then we see Britannica has some legal issues where she may be kicked out of the country, so she plans to marry him on screen. Which leads to Bash Howard coming forward and saying he's been in love with Britannica. That's why he's sleeping on the floor of her house for so long. Then we get them getting married on the show. It kind of felt like a soap opera would, and it was awesome. The weird thing about this is, and I'm going to go off of that, we see a little bit of their newlywed / just doing everything backwards, as Bash said, interaction. I thought they were playing Bash as being gay. And the whole season we had this side story of Bash's butler, Florian, was missing, and he didn't know where he was, and he was looking for him. Which led to the big reveal when Bash and Liberty Bell are trying to sell the show, and they're sitting in a bar taking calls. Bash gets a call from a hospital to let him know that Florian had died of AIDS. And this part really hit me hard. I had one of my best friend, his father, we're still best friends to this day. His father, who was like a second father to me, had AIDS in the late 80s. And just how they did this, it took me back to that. It took me back to the hysteria, and it took me back to the misunderstanding and how people were treated. We see Bash calls up a cleaning company and basically says to throw everything out in Florian's room and bleach the entire house. And this was a mindset. People didn't know how you got it. It was so new and so devastating that people would react like this. People, they say on the phone, we know a lot of funeral homes won't take the body, and that was really happening. People were afraid that they would get AIDS from the decomposing corpse. We really didn't know. I mean, it seems silly now to anybody that didn't live through it, But living through it and having someone so close to me who was affected to this really tugged at my heart and pulled me back. And I felt all that pain that Bash's character had, all the misunderstanding that he had as well. And luckily for me, in my situation, I couldn't have understood it more. I was explained fully. My best friend's mother, and I'm not going to say their names on here because I don't necessarily want you to go, and this isn't for sympathy. This is just to tie in how the story is so grounded in the era it was in. My best friend's mother was a nurse, and so was my mother. And they explained it. My mother went to school with my best friend's father. They were classmates. They knew each other their whole life. And I watched this guy who was basically a bodybuilder. He was a guy that went to the gym all the time, go from about a 220-pound, muscle-bound strongman down to 130 pounds in a 2-year period before he eventually passed away. And watching that and understanding more than the general public did, it tore at my heart when people would be on TV with these extreme views that, you know, it's all gays, it's all, we need to eradicate this. And knowing someone that not only wasn't gay, not that that's bad, but knowing that it could happen to anybody, and knowing that the general public hadn't yet opened up their eyes to see that this was a real epidemic, this took me back into that. And it took me back into all those memories flushed into my brain. And that's what good art will do. It's going to take you there. It's going to take you to those parts of pain. It's going to take you to those memories. It's going to take you to those happy times. A lot of the stuff with Justine and the band she likes and liking punk rock music in the 80s. I liked a lot of the same bands. She's wearing a Germs t-shirt. I love the Germs. I mean, it's so set and grounded in its era without being dated, if that makes sense. But I digress. I know I took it all a little serious tone there. Overall, I really enjoyed the show. I really enjoyed that they decided to focus more on the other characters, and there's more that they focused on. I don't want to go on a 40-minute talk about the show. Go and watch it. It is a great... I liked Season 1, and I like Season 2 even better. Now, where are they going to go with in Season 3? Questionably, they're taking their show to Las Vegas, which is what the real show did. They came out of Las Vegas on TV, but they're going to be a Vegas act. How is Bash and Britannica's relationship going to end up? Are we going to find out that Bash and Florian were a thing, and Bash is bisexual, and maybe we find out that Bash also has AIDS? Possibly. Is Ruth and Russell going to stay together? Or is the fact that Russell's in LA and she's in Vegas going to drive a wedge, and is Sam going to walk into that wedge, and are we going to get Ruth and Sam? Is Liberty Bell going to come back out of seeming depression and seeming to have this crisis? Is Machu Picchu going to be a more depressed character next year? We see how the effect of the man Bash that she was adoring and Britannica getting together affected her. So we got all these things and all of these stories to be covered, and others that I'm not mentioning here just because I don't want to go on and make a 2-hour video about this. But the way everything is set out, the way they overarch everything, I love the fact that Season 1 felt like it was the Ruth, Sam, and Liberty Bell show with other separate characters. This season actually felt like, yes, Ruth and Sam are the two main characters, but all of these ancillary characters are also very important, and also going to be used, and we're going to talk about their stories. There's some shows where the Ruth and Sam story has nothing to do with the overall arc of one of the episodes, or a few episodes. So, with all that being said, I thoroughly enjoyed it. On a 1 to 5 scale, 1 being the worst and 5 being the best, I give this a hard 5. I love the show. I highly recommend it. If you haven't seen season 1 even, go back and watch both of them, and hopefully you agree with what I say. With all that being said, my name is George Coles, and this has been a Heel Heat Review.